Hello, everyone. It is Big Al right here, Alan D., the fabulous gay mystic, and I'm here with the fabulous Carolyn McGee. Hello, Carolyn. I see you have those chakras spinning.
I do. They're all
Yeah, great, great. All right, everybody, welcome to the Mystic Badass Resistance Breakthrough 7-Day Meditation Challenge. And we are focusing on meditating twice a day and then looking at the whole intention is to make the commitment and then to specifically measure, did I meditate twice or more for 20 minutes or more for 7 days? And it's a simple yes or no. Yes, I did. No, I didn't. But the point of all this is to surface resistance, noticing, do I embrace my commitment to meditate joyfully and with great ease, find that 20 minutes in my day twice to sit and be present to myself and my experience, or where there are different layers and levels of resistance? From the rigid, oh, I have to do it, I made a commitment, to blowing one or both meditations off. The point is to notice the source of the resistance. And then we're going to, over the 7 days, specifically work with the different kinds of resistance. So I am broadcasting live from the shadow of Houston, Texas. And so where in the world are you listening today? And Carolyn, where are you today?
I am in Westboro, Massachusetts, which is about 45 minutes due west of Boston.
All right, awesome. So great, wonderful to have everybody here with us today. And so we're going to be working with the inner critic. Yay, joy, rapture. So here we go. So we're moving into the inner critic. And so let's just dive in. Okay, great. There we go. Okay, wonderful. So I am Alan Davidson. I'm the founder of Evolutionary Mystic Meditation. Carolyn is actually a facilitator, an advanced facilitator of this work. And what we're doing in our resistance challenge is really just a sliver out of this body of work. And we're really playing with the concept of we're all spiritual seekers together. We're on the great road together to waking up as spiritual beings having a human experience and humans having a spiritual experience. And the first stage of that journey is what I call being a spiritual badass. And there are 5 stages in the mystic's evolutionary journey, with the 5th stage being the real embodiment of your mystical self, your evolutionary mystic. And so there are 3 essential skills to being a spiritual badass, and they are the foundation of being a mystic badass. And those 3 skills are recenter your power, reset your higher self, and recharge your vital energies. And in today's experience of working, sensing, and tapping with the inner critic, a facet of resistance, we're going to use all 3 of these basic, fundamental, and foundational techniques or practices or rituals for being a spiritual badass. So again, just our commitment for our 7-day challenge is to meditate for 20 minutes or more twice a day for 7 days. And you can use any kind of meditation you like. For our purposes, it doesn't matter what kind. Again, there's the wonderful, amazing benefits that come from meditating. When we look at the problems that face our world, whether it is, war, poverty, the destruction of the environment, poverty, whatever the problems are, the single common denominator of all the problems that face and plague humanity is actually the lack of human development. 94% of the world's population is stuck in a very selfish and or um, uh, a selfish point of view. And so it takes really the development, the evolution of humanity, of human consciousness, for us to move up from, say, the lower 3 chakras into the heart. And then from the lower 6 chakras really into the 7th chakra. That's into that mystical evolution. And here's what we know about helping humans move from stage to stage and level to level, is that any kind of meditation, it almost doesn't matter, helps you evolve as a human being, helps you mature as a human being. So that's a little side note. So if you just commit to a regular meditative practice, it will help you develop and move through the stages. Say like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and moving from the lower safety needs all the way to self-actualization and peak experiences. I got off on a little tangent there. All right, so reset to your higher self. That's the primary way that we're going to work. And just so you have an understanding, the way that I work, that we have an entire community of selves or voices or subpersonalities that live within us. It's normal, it's natural. Almost 99% of the population can, with a little coaching or a little guidance, can actually sense the difference of the subpersonalities, and when one subpersonality is in charge and when others are being repressed or suppressed. So I think in terms of this community of selves. Some people refer to the orchestra or a chorus or a company or a business or a boardroom. I like the analogy of the boarding house, and that different parts of our cells live on different floors, separated or organized by their function. And the penthouse is our soul team. It's the part of us that connect to our soul and into the infinite and the eternal. The second story is for that part of us that really is focused on us succeeding and thriving, cultivating positive emotions, cultivating our strengths and gifts and flow states when we engage in our gifts and strengths, our meaning and purpose and our values, achieving, the parts of us that love to achieve and compete and do that in a healthy and conscious way. And then, of course, that part of us that really are focused on belonging and intimacy and the important relationships in our lives. So that's the sort of success team. The ground floor is the persona. It's the parts of us that help us function through our day. The sensing self, the feeling self, the mental self, the choosing self, the spiritual self. And then whatever persona is in charge in the spotlight, or as our friend Jackie says, who's driving the bus. And then the basement is the parts of us, that's where resistance live. And that's team survival. It's all the parts of us that have been developed to protect us, to keep us safe, to keep us out of harm's way, to manage our fears and anxieties, and to get our basic needs met. Going back to Maslow again in the hierarchy of needs. So, and that's what I just said here. The thing to understand, we're going to deal with the inner critic, and most of the people that I know and work with have had a very abusive relationship with their inner critic, and sometimes a very painful relationship with their inner critic. And so one of the things that I love about this particular work is that we learn to move to a place of center and of strength and power and compassion. And we begin to realize that every voice is important and every voice has a job and a function. And all of the voices of resistance are trying to be helpful in their own way, in the ways that they believe we need to be helped and to serve. our voices of resistance are trying to keep you safe from judgment, ridicule, rejection, failure, abandonment, pain. So they're functioning in the world in trying to be helpful. The help is well-meaning, but often unskilled for the moment. And so part of what we do with tapping and working with these different facets of resistance is to begin to, one, help them loosen the stranglehold that they have on parts of us, and to relax and open, and then learn some new skills so they can function in a more mature way. How does that sound to you? I'm going to just check on the comments. So let's see. Well, first I want to say, Jenna, great to be here with you. Georgia from Halifax, Nova Scotia, fantastic. Jenna's in Iowa, bright and sunny. And Ty is in Houston. I happen to know Ty has actually known me for a very, very long time. She was one of my massage students from a previous life. So I quit teaching massage, I think, in 2000. So a long time ago. All right. Denise from Derry. Wonderful. And okay, great. So now let's dive into the inner critic. Now, how many of you are aware that you have an inner critic? That would be me. Okay, so a mix of the inner critic is a mix of all the commands that you heard as a child from your mom or your dad or whoever had power over you. And now those commands are the ones that you tell yourself internally. You know, those, the ones that, be good, tell the truth, stand up straight, don't talk with your mouth full, don't talk back. Carolyn, do you remember a couple of commands your mom or dad used to tell you all the time?
Be a good girl, pay attention to your sister, make sure you're taking care of everybody else. Everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, mine was, growing up in rural Texas was a big boys don't cry. Don't be a sissy.
Yeah.
Have that stiff upper lip. Yeah. Yeah. All right. And for those of you at home, what are some of the commands that you heard as a child from your mom or your dad or your caregiver that had power over you? Okay. The inner critic sees its job of moving from your mom or dad or the caregiver and externally censoring you to that part of you that now internally censors you. It primarily uses criticism and guilt. And if, can also use shame. It sees its job is to keep you in that box or that lane of being the good girl or the good boy. And most of us have had the inner critic be from merely devaluing to even being vicious and hateful, depending on what the risk is. And I had one of my dear friends who's done a lot of this work with the inner selves, the inner parts. And for a lot of her life, the inner critic was actually the person driving the bus that was in charge, that was so abusive that the other parts of her were just subjugated. So that's a little bit about the inner critic and the part of us that criticizes us for, did we meditate twice a day, or could we have done it better, yada, yada, yada. So we're going to access just some of the sensations of the critic and some of maybe the subtler emotions of the critic and work with them today in regards to our meditation challenge. Um, and there are three parts of the work that we're going to focus on today. One is your body experience. I'm going to always ask you, what are you sensing? What do you notice? Because this is about embodied freedom, embodied enlightenment. And then we're going to work on the inner parts. And then we're going to use tapping or emotional freedom technique to work with them. So the first thing we're going to do, I mentioned the three skill sets that you need, is to recenter in your power and reset to your higher self and recharge your vital energy. So this is the recenter your power. And we're actually going to move into our experience today. So, Miss Carolyn, are you ready?
I am. As you know, the inner critic was one of the strongest voices I had, so I always love to go back and give her a little bit of love.
All right. Oh, let's see. A couple of people entered some of the commands or things that they got as a. Oh my gosh, lots of good feedback here. Someone says, "Don't talk back. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all." Of course, in the deep South, what we, those of us rebels, we say, if you can't say something nice, come sit by me. That's a different episode. Um, don't be too needy. Stop whining. Who do you think you are? I think that's the whole Australian concept of is the tall poppy that gets chopped, that gets cut. Jenna says, I don't have needs. Be obedient. Don't challenge authority. Don't do anything. Read a book. Children should be seen and not heard. If it's not important, don't bother me. Or even, you're stupid. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, now we're going to start to work with some of those stories, some of those commands. Those commands, if they're repeated enough, become beliefs that are held in the subconscious mind, unconscious mind, and then they become part of our inner selves, our inner voices, and they're all driven by emotion. So, okay. So, everyone, we're going to start on our practice today. So, I want you to rub your hands together. And again, the sensations of the body, experiencing your body. And we talk about the five senses: seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling. But for meditation, primarily we use the sensations of touch to ground ourselves and anchor our experience in the body. So the sensations of touch are movement or vibration. They can be temperature, just letting the palms rest. You feel some warmth on the palms there. And maybe contrasting a sensation of coolness on other parts of the skin. And then pressure. So there's a light pressure, or there's maybe a firm pressure. So movement, temperature, pressure, and the fourth sensation of the body is pain. So, if you have a predominant sense of pain in the body. So now taking the thumbs and bring them to your navel and letting the palms come to just underneath your belly button. In Japan, that's called the hara. In China, it's called the dantian. In the yogic tradition, it's called the second chakra. And this is your power center. It is your center of gravity. It is your energetic center of the body. If you think of where the feet and the soles touch the earth versus the top of the head, this is the midpoint. It's also your gravitational center. So if you've seen any of those wonderful martial arts movies like The Matrix or Kung Fu Panda or Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, you all those amazing movements start and end from the center. And I'm going to unpack the living from the center a little more in one of our little introductory talks. And so I'm going to teach you now a very simple Aikido centering technique, but it's you beginning to really sense the power of your awareness and connection to your center and moving from center and living from center. So just taking a breath and just leaning to one side and noticing the stretch of the side and the ribs, and come back to center. And stretching the other side, and come back to center, centering side to side. Just take a breath. And now leaning forward and sensing the back muscles contracting, keeping you from falling forward, and return to center. And now leaning back. And return to center. And now we're going to center up and down. And so tightening the muscles around the feet, the ankles, clenching the muscles around the legs and the thighs and the pelvis and the diaphragm and belly, the chest and ribs, the arms, the wrists, the fist, the neck, the jaws, the eyes, the scalp, and just sense yourself completely lifted up and off center. And when you're ready, completely drop and relax. And just drop. And then just rub those palms together again and centering side to side, front to back, and up and down. And just breathe and noticing, looking into yourself. What do you sense? What do you notice? And for those of you watching, enter into the comments. What do you sense? What do you notice? And Miss Carolyn, what do you sense? What do you notice?
A greater awareness of what's around me, because my senses and my ability to sense into energy is more aligned and open.
All right. Okay, great. I'm sensing, I notice a lot more space in my chest, and my breath is a lot more full, and there's that sense of the breath sort of moving front and back and side to side. So there's this chest is more open, and so my breath is more deep. And my mind is a little more focused. So, all right, everyone. So from this centered place, now can you tune into where the inner critic is showing up in your experience today? And that can be as a sensation in the body. It can be an emotion. It can be a story or a state of mind. It can even appear sort of, outside of your body, something that's pushing you or holding you down. And so Carolyn is going to be our partner for this, but we all go through this experience together. So Carolyn, can you sense where the critic is showing up in your body today?
Yeah, the inner critic is showing up in my heart. There's a dense energy, a heaviness, like a wall closing in, protecting.
Yeah. And what is the critic telling you? What's it saying to you?
It's a voice of why bother. Nothing's going to work out. Everything you try it's not going to work anyway.
Yeah.
So be conventional. Don't try anything unusual. That was another one of the refrains in the family. Don't do anything different.
Don't stand out. Don't be
Don't
different.
stand out. Don't be different. Make sure you know, toe the line.
Yeah. Yeah. Toe the line. Yeah.
Toe the line. Yeah. So yes. So there's a big energy around attempting to be different and
Mm-hmm.
being kind of smacked down for it.
And anything, in regards to meditating or any of the rituals, spiritual rituals that you could be doing or should be doing.
Oh, yeah, that you know, I didn't meditate long enough, that I took a twist on a meditative process that you walked me through, and then I added my own spin. I should never have tried it differently because I'm wrong.
Yeah. Okay, great. Great. All right. And so as you tune into that critic for you, that's sort of in your chest, in your heart area, is there an emotion that you sense with the critic?
Yes, sadness.
Sadness. Okay, great, great. And if you were to rate from 0 to 10 the intensity of the critic in your chest, in your heart, and that sadness, 0 being completely at ease and joyful, and 10 being the most intense, how would you rate the critic right now?
7 or an 8.
Okay, great, great. All right. 7 or 8. All right. So if you know tapping and love tapping, which I know Carolyn does, Carolyn, if you want to model the short form for us as we tap, great. Or, you will get amazing benefits in this work if you just simply tap what's called the heel of the hand point.
Mhm.
You can do it several ways. And I'm going to model that to keep it really simple for people. And if you have points that you love, by all means, use them. Okay. Take a breath, coming back into center and repeating after me. I recognize the fact
I recognize the fact
that I have an inner critic.
that I have an inner critic.
Ooh, a very busy inner critic.
Woohoo, a very busy inner critic.
A very powerful inner critic.
A very powerful inner critic.
A part of me
A part of me
that has heard and recorded
that is heard and recorded
all the messages and commands I got as a child.
all the messages and commands I got as a child.
All those commands that I got over and over and over.
All those commands I got over and over and over.
Those that were overtly spoken.
Those that were overtly spoken.
And those that were covertly enforced.
And those that were covertly enforced.
Because I was a very smart and precocious child.
Because I was a very smart and precocious child.
I was free and innocent.
I was free and innocent.
Vulnerable.
Vulnerable.
Joyful and playful.
Joyful and playful.
And then all those rules.
And then all those rules.
All those commands.
All those commands.
Things that I had to do.
Things that I had to do.
Things that I had to be.
Things that I had to be.
The ways I had to show up.
The ways I had to show up.
Over and over and over again.
Over and over and over again.
It squashed my vulnerability.
It squashed my vulnerability.
My playfulness.
My playfulness.
My joyfulness.
My joyfulness.
My innocence.
My innocence.
All the things that I have to be in the world.
All the things I have to be in the world.
And my inner critic.
My inner critic.
Just repeats those commands.
Just repeats those commands.
Non-stop.
Non-stop.
There's the box.
There is that box.
That I have to live in.
That I have to live in.
There's not very much space at all.
There's not very much space at all.
Kind of suffocating.
Kind of suffocating.
And then there's a part of me.
And then there's a part of me.
That wants to reclaim my innocence.
That wants to reclaim my innocence.
My joyfulness.
my joyfulness,
my spontaneity,
my spontaneity,
my freedom.
my freedom.
I realize the fact
I realize the fact
that my inner critic is just trying to help me.
that my inner critic is just trying to help me.
But my inner critic
My inner critic
can be a little overzealous.
a little overzealous.
Okay, a lot overzealous.
Okay, a lot overzealous.
It can be really painful sometimes,
Really painful sometimes.
even vicious,
Even vicious.
even hateful.
Even hateful.
And I realize the fact
And I realize the fact
for all the pain that it's caused.
for all the pain that it's caused.
My inner critic
My inner critic
is just trying to help me.
is just trying to help me.
But she's unskilled.
But she is unskilled.
She's an old, old inner voice.
She's an old, old inner voice.
And she came online
And she came online
when I was a lot younger.
when I was a lot younger.
I realized the fact that I have an inner critic.
I realize the fact that I have an inner critic.
I have a lot of other parts of me.
I have a lot of other parts of me.
And I'm in the center.
And I am in the center.
The tension between the opposites.
The tension between the opposites.
Like a seesaw.
Like a seesaw.
Riding the wave.
Riding the wave.
All right, take a breath. Everyone shake that out. If you have some water, you might want to just take a little sip. Just looking deep into yourself. What do you sense? What do you notice? And for those of you listening at home, enter into the comments. What do you sense? What do you notice? And Carolyn, what do you sense? What do you notice?
I sense that my body is more grounded and connected. A heavier energy in my torso and in my legs.
Yeah. And just tuning into your heart, what do you sense and notice of that critic that was there in your heart?
There's more energy flow. There's more expansion. There's still a heaviness and a tightness,
Okay.
but it's kind of like this versus this.
So instead of a fist, it's like a little bit of space and an opening.
So there's a little, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Great, great. And Jenna says that she's more calmer, and I love Willa says, oh, during the tapping, after the tapping, a little voice pops up. Well, I think she's great. So, one of the polar opposites of the inner critic is our cheerleader. It's like, yeah, go Team Willa. Yeah. How listening to the inner critic as truth stifles my very life energy. Then there's an energy of no more. And that's one of the things that happens with these very strong voices, that come very dominant in our life. They tell a particular story about us and about our life. And what happens is that we attach to them. We give them the power of truth, when really it is only a sliver of our experience that may or may not be true at all. It's not until we really question if that voice is really speaking our truth, rather than just a sliver of our experience. So great. So just even having that insight creates a lot more space. All right. And Jenna says a quieter blah, blah voice in my head. Yeah. the resistance can take on so many different shapes and forms. And so, we're just sort of unpacking them over the 7 days. What are some of the lieutenants, the top lieutenants and top personas that resistance can, I sometimes think of resistance as not only the great general, but it's really like the puppet master. And it's like, it gauges, the risk factor of what's going on in our day and our moment, but also what our goals are. And if we're working towards our goals and resistance says, oh, that's too scary, it knows exactly which of the lieutenants to pull the strings on and kick into gear. All right, great. So as you tune back into the critic in your body, and you said it's moved from like a fist to just an opening, is there any message that the critic is whispering to you or saying to you now?
I want you to be safe.
I want you to be safe. Okay, great. And what is the critic saying is the worst thing that could happen?
You could die.
You could die. So not just abandonment, but annihilation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You could die. Okay, great. Okay. Tap with me. I realize there's a part of me,
I realize there's a part of me,
my inner critic,
my inner critic,
who's been criticizing me a long time,
who's been criticizing me a long time,
working diligently to keep me in a box,
working diligently to keep me in a box,
safe in a cocoon,
safe in a cocoon,
the mix of all the commands
mix of all the commands
that I got as a child, all the things that I had to do,
all the things that I had to do,
all the things that I should be,
all the things that I should be,
to be safe in the world,
to be safe in the world,
safe in my family,
safe in my family,
safe in my tribe,
safe in my tribe,
all the things that my parents
all the things that my parents
and caregivers
and caregivers
said I needed to do to survive
said I needed to do to survive
and to succeed
and to succeed
and to thrive.
and to thrive.
And I've been telling that story,
And I've been telling that story
that I learned as a child, for years, keeping myself in a box.
keeping myself in a box.
It's kind of like that old analogy of the elephant.
Kind of like that old analogy of the elephant.
A small baby elephant
A small baby elephant
is chained to a post.
is chained to a post.
And over time, as the elephant grows, smaller and smaller chains,
and
eventually just ropes, keep the elephant chained to the post. That's my inner critic.
That's my inner critic.
Keeping me chained. Playing small. Living in an old story. And I realize it's a part of me. That just wants me to be safe. Wants me to survive. Doesn't want me to be abandoned. Doesn't want me to be hurt. Doesn't want me to be dead. It's working so hard to protect me. That's its job. But I realize it's only one part of me. There's so many parts of me that do very different jobs, that see the world in different ways, have different skills, different talents, and different gifts. There are other parts of me that know how to protect me, to make sure that I don't die, or that I don't fail, or that I don't get laughed at, or I don't get hurt.
that I don't get hurt.
I have a lot of parts of me,
I have a lot of parts of me,
and I can listen to my inner critic,
and I can listen to my inner critic,
and I can listen to the other parts too.
and I can listen to the other parts too.
And I can choose for myself
And I can choose for myself
which one has the most wisdom to share.
which one has the most wisdom to share.
When I live from my center,
I live from my center.
I have so much more choice.
I have so much more choice.
And I'm not just hijacked by
And I'm not just hijacked by
one old critic,
one old critic,
one very old story.
one very old story.
And take a breath, everyone, shake that out. That's it. Just take a breath. Just letting your body open, letting your awareness open. And what do you sense? What do you notice?
I sense energy flow in my heart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And does that energy flow radiate to other parts of your body?
It's still contained like in the heart chakra area, so kind of from my shoulders down to the diaphragm, but it's movement in this part of the body instead of just that tight fist that I started with.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Great. Great. Okay. All right. And when you sort of focus in on the critic and where that critic was in your heart and sort of that fist sense, what do you notice about the critic?
The critic feels contemplative, like listening to everything that you've been saying and that I've been repeating, so that there's this maybe things can be different energy, not a, yeah, along, so it feels like the critic is everywhere here now,
Yeah. Yeah.
instead of being in a tight resistance, only one way, or the highway. That was another one. The highway or the highway.
Yeah. Knowing a little bit about your mom, that I know there was a lot of it's my way or the highway, which was, for a little girl, that was death,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love what Georgia said. Oh, there's more comfort in my chest, and my parts are asking for a regular meeting to hear what each other needs. Beautiful. Beautiful.
It is beautiful.
I'm reminded, Georgia, of the Native American prayer of reproach. And it starts off, I bring my undefended heart to our meeting place. I bring my undefended heart to our meeting place. And when we can bring our undefended heart to that meeting place where all of our parts can meet, and hold that space of compassion and care, and not that some of our inner parts don't need boundaries and borders, because if there's an inner critic attack, then we absolutely want to set some boundaries for the inner critic and counterbalance the inner critic with those more compassionate and joyful parts of ourselves, until the inner critic can, say, warning, 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 you're in danger here, and we can consciously work with that threat and determine, oh, is it a real danger? Is it a real threat? Or is it a perceived danger? So, yeah. And I love Georgia says, now my critic is asking for updated rules and or guiding principles.
Nice.
Yeah. And someone says, I sense a greater presence of self versus them, who've internally ruled my mind for so long, and which I've let rule my external world too. Yeah, yeah. And really, the whole essence of this work is not only realizing, oh, we have all these parts, but which ones have been in charge? Has fear been driving the parts of us that are in charge, or has love?
Mhm.
The parts of us that are connected to love and wanting the very best for us. Someone says, my undefended heart reminds me of Ho'oponopono, bringing this to even more compassion. Absolutely. And Georgia says, all of my relations is all of existence, but also all of my parts. Georgia, my core value is nonviolence. And out of that sort of nonviolence and recognizing the preciousness of all life, the action that inspires for me, my sole purpose is reconciliation, harmony, and alchemy. And that reconciliation starts within me, that reconciling all the different parts. And then from that place of inner harmony, how can I be a catalyst for reconciliation in my family, in my tribe, and certainly in the world where there's so much conflict right now? And then from me being able to sit with the tension of my desire for harmony and recognizing the conflict and the pain and the suffering in the world, then that's where the alchemy starts to happen. That the pain and suffering is held in a more powerful way, and that alchemy starts to transmute that pain and suffering until only love remains. Okay, well, let's do one more round with a critic, and then I think that'll be good for today. All right, so here we go. I realize that I have an inner critic.
I realize that I have an inner critic.
It's one of my oldest voices.
It's one of my oldest voices.
One of my oldest friends.
One of my oldest friends.
Which sometimes has felt like an adversary.
Which sometimes has felt like an adversary.
Like an enemy.
Like an enemy.
Because sometimes it feels like the worst part of me.
Sometimes it feels like the worst part of me.
It's like my inner policeman.
It's my inner policeman.
Or inner police woman.
Or inner police woman.
That is just brutalizing me.
That is just brutalizing me.
Aware of every rule.
Aware of every rule.
Every law.
Every law.
Every vow.
Every vow.
And when I get close to breaking one.
And when I get close to breaking one.
And then the critic can just go nuclear.
And then the critic can just go nuclear.
All the guilt.
All the guilt.
All the shame.
All the shame.
All the humiliation.
All the humiliation.
Boy, my critic is a taskmaster.
Oh, my critic is a taskmaster.
At least she has been.
At least she has been.
But now there's room for growth.
But now there's room for growth.
Because I realize there are so many other parts of me.
Because I realize there are so many other parts of me.
There's my cheerleader.
There's my cheerleader.
The self is just fabulous.
The self is just fabulous.
Look at all the things that the self has achieved.
Look at all the things the self has achieved.
Has succeeded at.
And has succeeded at.
Could the self have done more?
Could the self have done more?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And how about we celebrate?
And how about we celebrate
just how cool the self really is.
Just how cool the self really is.
How tenacious the self is.
How tenacious the self is.
Have been living their spiritual values.
Been living their spiritual values.
In the world.
In the world.
And that takes courage.
And that takes courage.
Could the self have done better?
Could the self have done better?
You bet.
You bet.
But the self is showing up.
But the self is showing up.
The self is still working.
The self is still working.
And there's so much more the self will do.
And there's so much more the self will do.
Now that the critic
is
releasing her stranglehold.
Is releasing her stranglehold.
And letting go just a bit.
And letting go just a bit.
Helping some of that energy move.
And helping some of that energy move.
Those old fears.
Those old fears.
Those old emotions.
Those old emotions.
Those old stories.
Those old stories.
I can choose to let them go now.
I can choose to let them go now.
I can up-level my critic.
I can up-level my critic.
I can up-level the rules.
I can up-level the rules.
And I can also say,
And I can also say,
rules are meant to be broken.
rules are meant to be broken.
I can be strategic about that.
I can be strategic about that.
I can bring discernment
I can bring discernment
to the rules I choose to live by,
to the rules I choose to live by,
the values I choose to live by,
the values I choose to live by,
and what is truly non-negotiable.
and what is truly not negotiable.
They're conscious choices for me now,
There are conscious choices for me now,
and not just the subconscious beliefs
and not just subconscious beliefs
that were ingrained in me as a child.
that were ingrained in me as a child.
They were important.
They were important,
They did keep me safe.
and they did keep me safe.
They did keep me alive.
They did keep me alive.
But I'm an adult now.
But I'm an adult now.
I'm wiser now,
I'm wiser now,
more compassionate,
more compassionate,
and I can consciously choose for myself.
and I can consciously choose for myself.
And I can ask my inner critic
And I can ask my inner critic
to operate from new values
to operate from new values
and new rules
and new rules
and new vows,
and new vows,
and to remind me
and to remind me
when I lose my way
when I lose my way
in a kinder, gentler
in a kinder, gentler
way of being.
way of being.
I can let go of viciousness.
I can let go of viciousness.
I can let go of cruelty.
I can let go of cruelty.
I can allow my spiritual truth
I can allow my spiritual truth
to sing through me,
to sing through me,
call me forward,
calm me forward,
so I don't operate from a place of fear.
so I don't operate from a place of fear.
I operate from a place of divine love.
I operate from a place of divine love.
And divine love calls me forward
Divine love calls me forward
and allows me to embrace all the pain and suffering
and allows me to embrace all the pain and suffering
that drives the critic
that drives the critic
and judgment
and judgment
and procrastination
and procrastination
and all of resistance.
and all of resistance.
I can hold them all with compassion,
I can hold them all with compassion
kindness,
and kindness
for respect how hard they've worked,
and respect how hard they've worked.
but I can hold them all in love
I can hold them all in love
until only love remains.
until only love remains.
I am the center.
I am the center.
And everybody take a breath and shake that out. Just rub those palms together and bringing the palms to the hara and just centering side to side, front to back. And what do you sense? What do you notice?
No more divide in my body. The energy is back flowing head to toe. Yay.
From the tippy top of the head to the tippy tips of the toes.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And as you tune in to where you sense the critic in your heart and your chest, what do you sense now about the critic?
Love.
Love. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'd love to hear from those of you that are tapping with us through Facebook and YouTube. What are you sensing? What do you notice? Well, I certainly sense a lot more space, particularly in my chest and torso, a lot of energy sort of moving up, particularly the sort of the in front of my back muscles, sort of inside my torso. But there's this deep sense of calm.
Mm.
Georgia says, definitely in the flow now. All right, sister. Yeah. So, one thing that we've done with this challenge already, this is just day 3. So we've looked at 3 different personas of resistance, or facets of resistance: procrastination, and the judge, and now the inner critic. And over the next 4 days that are left in our challenge, we're going to continue to look at more facets of resistance. But the whole point is to, one, recognize the tremendous job that they do for us and why they do it. They're trying to help us. But it's now, it's like, let's create new choices for ourselves and allow the voices of resistance to, one, protect us and guide us, but then also up level their skills, up level their reason for being, and just see what becomes possible for you. And Willis says, feeling less defended along the front line of the body and around the heart. Beautiful, beautiful. Jenna says, energy moving down from the head to the gut, and not such a sacral lump. I like to call it that sacral knot. I think it might be Denise, but Facebook user says lighter, more choices. All right, well, that's our process for today. So let's just rub those palms together, and with the breath, bringing those palms to the hara, and just inviting all the parts of ourselves that are ready to come home to your center, come home to your center. And certainly inviting your normal everyday self, and all the parts of resistance, all the parts of your success team, all the parts of your soul team, all the enlightened and embodied parts of you, all the gifts and talents and skills, inviting all the parts of you that are ready to come home and to reintegrate into your spiritual badass and your mystical badass. So let's take a breath for body. Take a breath for heart. Take a breath for mind. Take a breath for will. And a breath for spirit, sensing that ball of light above your head, through the 7 embodied chakras, and into the molten heart of Mother Earth herself. And that pillar of light that connects heaven and earth. Taking a breath for spirit. And now a breath that integrates everything together. All facets of body and being, all the different parts and voices of you. And everyone, just 2 words that describe what you sense and what you notice in this moment. And please enter that into the comments, if you will. And Carolyn, what do you sense? What do you notice?
Peaceful connection.
Okay, peaceful connection. And I sense exciting work.
Ooh.
Got a lot to do today, but I feel excited about it. So for those of you watching with us, thank you so much for your time, your attention, your energy. I value that so much. Georgia says she feels soothed and accepted. Facebook user says wise guidance. Jenna says inspired. Thank you, Dr. Jenna. All right, beautiful. Well, thank you everyone for your time and your attention today. We'll be back tomorrow. Oh, Willa says release and movement. Let it go, girl. Let it go. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm waiting for divine guidance and inspiration on what facet of resistance we'll work with tomorrow. So more will be revealed. But we'll be right here at noon Eastern time tomorrow for day 4 of our 7-day meditation challenge and our resistance breakthrough. Bye-bye. And thank you. A special shout out to Carolyn for being a great partner today and your time and attention and being of service to all of us. So thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.